my head. Well, one, I'm Keisha. You all know that. Okay. So it goes, it's easy. Mommy, it's your side. No room for racism. No room for racism. No room. You keep saying it. It's not Girl Scouts. It's not a repeat. All right. So, 2, ready, go. No room for racism. 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 I want to thank you all so much for coming out here. Short notice, short everything, cold, windy. Like someone said, they did not. Nobody took note that we were trying to do this today outside. So I really appreciate you. Before we start, I want to acknowledge, thank you so much, all of the elected officials in the audience who've come in support. And I have a list, but if I forget, Erin's gonna tell me who. So thank you, Sue Nowak from the Pleasant Hill City Council, Kim Carlson from the Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors, Anna Marie Farias from the Contra Costa County Board of Education, and
Peter Cloven from the City
Clayton
Council member.
City Clayton Council member.
I think I saw
Carlin, yes, Carlin is from Concord City Council. So we've almost have all of our MDUSC cities represented. I really appreciate it. And the school board, thank you so much. And my vice president of the board, Trustee Erin McFerrin, and of course Holly will introduce better later in just a moment. So I just I'll introduce myself more formally. My name is Keisha Nzewi. First and foremost, I'm a mother in this district. Secondly, I'm on the school board, and I've been on the school board for 2 years. And I am honored that I had the trust of my fellow board members to be elected president this year. So when we moved to this district, my daughter was in the 5th grade. I had looked up the demographics of her new school and knew that she would be just one of a handful of Black students. Having grown up being just one of a handful myself, I did my best to prepare her based on my own experience, especially around classroom discussions about the civil rights movement or slavery. That's when everyone turns around and looks at the Black kid. Well, much different than the district we came from, there was no acknowledgement of MLK Day, no acknowledgement of Black History Month. So I was like, that's weird. But then I paid attention to Women's History Month, Asian American Pacific Islander Month that followed, and I realized the same silence persisted. So I concluded that at least it's not just Black folks, we are equal opportunity ignorers of the multicultural society in which we live. But I must admit, I miss that outward expression of celebrations of all cultures in our old school district. So the year dragged on, and until one day I came home excited to tell my daughter the most amazing news about something she had just accomplished. It was a super big deal. I called all my family that day before she got home, before I came home from work, because everybody needed to know what this was. So I got home and I burst through the front door to find her doing the homework on the couch. And before I get one word out, she looked at me and said, "So-and-so called me and my friend the N-word today." Surely I didn't hear what I just said. What? She repeated herself, and I just dropped everything in my hands, and I was honestly paralyzed, having no idea what to do. I took deep breaths. I immediately wanted to call my mom, because in this moment, I truly needed my mom. But I knew that if I called her, she'd roll up on the school, and I couldn't stop her. And I felt like I needed to be the one to roll up on the school. So instead, I looked at my daughter and explained calmly that my reaction has nothing to do with her and everything to do with her, because I will do absolutely anything to protect her. Then I told her good news, and she was uplifted immediately. I learned that she and her friend marched right on up to the office hand in hand to tell on that boy. They told the vice principal, yet I had to hear it from my daughter. The next day, I dropped her off in the drop-off line, parked, rolled up in the office, and asked to meet with the vice principal. We met. He told me he'd spoken to the boy's parents, but he can't tell me the plan for discipline. And it really isn't until these recent times that I realized he talked to the boys' parents, but he didn't reach out at all to the children who were harmed, to their parents. Anyway, he told me kids listen to music and that's how they learn it. And I tell him, no. This boy used this word as a weapon, not a lyric. Deciding not to further waste my time there, I wrote to several district administrators, which turned out to be a waste of my time because I heard absolutely nothing back. That was 5 years ago, just for reference. I've been inspired by Congresswoman Barbara Lee for a few decades now, and this morning she released a campaign video in which she said, "To do nothing has never been an option for me." As a Black mother to a Black child, all I can say is save Barbara, save. I cannot do nothing. My daughter's future depends on it. Avoiding the judgment of my mother depends on it. The well-being of all of our children, the MDUSD community, depends on it. And you all have joined us here today because you too know you can't do nothing. For the 2 years I've been on this board, I've witnessed the shift towards an equity lens in everything that we do. Just a few months ago, we passed an updated equity policy where we identified what needs to take place, including proactively identifying class, linguistic, and cultural biases, including unintentional and implicit biases that negatively affect student achievement, and interrupting practices, policies, and institutional barriers that negatively influence student learning, perpetuate achievement gaps, and impede equal access to opportunities for all students. Over the past 2 years or so, school site administrators have attended DEI trainings, required to lead equity work with their staff, and share their equity journeys with their peers. Our district is all in on implementing our plan to address the disparities in achievement of African American students, as well as students who are unhoused and students who are in the foster care system. Unlike many other districts, we're transparent with our problems and with our solutions. In this case, putting a lot of focus on the adults, or interrupting practices, policies, and institutional barriers. But clearly, it's not enough. When we have cotton balls passed out in honor of Black History Month, when we have students making monkey noises at Black students, when we have the N-word flying out of students' mouths on the daily, when we have students being told they shouldn't worry about college because they are fill in the blank for their race, when we have students who are bullied for being Asian, for being Latine, for being Muslim, for being indigenous, we failed our children. I've had the privilege of working in policy advocacy for most of my career, primarily at the state level. For a long time, I've known that the state's budget, a city's budget, a county's budget, a school district's budget, is nothing but a value statement. But it was about 10 years ago, toward the end of a years-long campaign, that then Senator Lonnie Hancock told us, all of us advocates, the lesson she had just learned. If you want to get anything done, you have to do it through the budget. I'm now convinced that our policies, while they are right and just, won't get things done. I plan to work with my board colleagues to provide budget proposals that put our money where our equity and anti-racist mouth is. We need to pay to bring in experts, educational leaders who've gone through it, focusing on the children, the adults, and our families. We pass a resolution in honor of every cultural month there is and encourage schools to include curriculum in honor of those months. I'm sure most of you with students can confidently say that doesn't happen. We need to purchase culturally responsive and affirming curriculum and not let it sit and collect dust. We need to fund field trips to the wealth of cultural museums and exhibits and shows in the Bay Area so students can learn about cultures they are familiar with and cultures that are new to them, and gain respect and appreciation for all in our communities. We need to continue to diversify our staff, faculty, and administrators, and ensure they are all in on our quest for equity and racism-free school environments. We need to continue bringing together our community. We're huge, we're just on students, we're almost 30,000. Can you imagine the impact we will have on our corner of the world and the world at large because we graduate students who appreciate, honor, and affirm the diversity of the world around them? This is a pivotal moment. I'm so glad to see you all join in this movement to ensure our schools are free of racism, to ensure our students are not victims of racial bullying. Again, this isn't an exercise for me. I literally cannot do nothing. And I'm so glad you have joined us in this cold and wind, because you can't do nothing either. Now I'm going to pass it to my partner in troublemaking, fellow mother who will do anything to protect her children, who definitely can't do nothing, Clayton City Councilwoman Holly Summers.
First, I think we need to give it up for who I know would not be the only trustee who would stand here and lead this rally. I know that there are others that have her backing to do the same. But we haven't done this before, and this is not the first time this has happened in our schools, which is why I spoke up. It really bothered me that I got the phone call. I know a lot of you may or may not know the story, but there was a racist cotton ball incident at our middle school that happened on February 2nd. I found out about it on February 8th, or the 9th. I can't even remember the calendar at this point. But it was a full week later when I found out. And no one at the school knew. None of the parents knew until I posted about it, and they started making comments and saying, why didn't we know? Our students go here. And the more that I kept probing, I realized it's because the school administration did not send anything out to the school body. I was bothered by that. I immediately contacted Keisha and said, did you hear about the cotton balls? She says, what are you talking about? That was her reaction.
It was stronger.
It was.
It was not good for child ears.
But then she made the next phone call that she needed to, which was to the superintendent, who also did not know. So it was clear that guidelines and protocols were not followed. That was a big issue. But further, the students who needed to be disciplined were not. One student was. In my opinion, he might have been the scapegoat, but that's my opinion. There were 8 students involved. All 8 of them should have had some type of repercussions, and that didn't happen. In addition, the parents of the students who were affected were also not contacted. One of whom, don't look at me in tears, one of whom broke down into tears and said he did not follow up on it because he was already dealing with issues with the school, with getting his child the services that his child needed. So he kind of picked his battles. And then he broke down and said, I shouldn't even have to do that. I should have been able to do all of that. But that same child had come home to him months prior and said, Dad, what's a cotton picker? That was the first time. So these microaggressions kept happening, and actually they're overtly racist. It's not a microaggression at that point. Have been happening, and it's not only at Diablo View. It's every school. And if you can hear the phone calls that I'm getting and hear the conversations I'm having with the parents throughout this district, it's a problem. And so to my fellow electeds that are all here, from the County Board of Supervisors to Pleasant Hill council members, Clayton City council members, Concord council members, Pittsburgh and Walnut Creek would be here too if they didn't have a meeting. It affects every single school in our district and outside of it. In fact, I think a council member from Hercules is coming as well. It's everywhere. It's pervasive throughout our communities and our nation, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna be quiet about it. And as angry as people get that I put my words into action and I'm gonna speak about these instances, I'm still gonna keep talking, because the more we talk about it and we put a name to it and call it out, the more that hopefully this can tamp it down, which is what we need to do. I said that in 2020, speaking to a lot of you guys out in the Grove, and I mean it. The more that we actually voice it and say this is not acceptable in our communities, raise your signs up. Like, people need to see we're saying no to racism. Silence is complicity. End racism. Hate has no place here. Celebrate diversity. Hold them up. Make a MDUSD better for me. A school has no place for hate. All of these signs are accurate, because we have to speak up about this, not in our schools, but also in our communities. It's time that we all do that. Staying silent is not an option. No matter how uncomfortable it is, it's not an option. In Clayton, we actually have a do the right thing message. And it's been that way since one of our council members, I think it was Hank Stratford, who came up with it in around 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. And we actually give out awards for that every other month or so. And students from our elementary school and our middle school get these awards, and they're in kindness, respect, self-confidence, courage, responsibility. What else am I missing? Integrity, inclusion. These are things that we're celebrating, and these students learn this from elementary school and kindergarten all the way through the charter high school. I think might still be doing it as well, but definitely in the middle school. And so when people are saying, you're making too big a deal out of this, you're really just trying to blow it up for your own political career. I don't care if I wasn't doing this, I'd be just as vocal, whether I'm in office or not. But because I am a local elected leader, I'm definitely going to use my voice to make sure that everyone understands our city doesn't stand for this. This is not who we are. We are all better than this as Americans. We are all Americans here, and all of us have a voice and a responsibility to stand up to hate, no matter who it's happening to and when it happens. It doesn't matter. It's 2023. And if we're afraid to have those conversations now and actually voice it, people cannot blame it on ignorance anymore. It's 2023. So if you're saying that my child is not learning it in school, it's not in their curriculum, and I'm glad, by the way, to hear that let's do this. Let's get it on the budget. Let's actually make some real changes so that these teachers have the tools that they need, because I know that they supplement. A lot of great teachers are supplementing. It's not enough. If those conversations aren't happening in their homes, parents need to be educated. Ignorance not allowed anymore. So if they say, I didn't learn that in school, well then let's do something about educating the parents then, because they all need it. All of us do. Parents, students, teachers, administrators. And also accountability, to me, is key. Accountability needs to happen in this instance, not in just Diablo View, but in all the schools in our district, because if it was happening, teachers and admins would be afraid to not be saying something. In fact, teachers that I was speaking to at a lot of these locations are afraid to speak up because they actually literally fear retaliation. That ought to make everybody standing here angry. Angry. They're getting up every day to go to work to educate our students and your children, and they fear retaliation when they speak up about things that are bad and happening in their schools. If someone wants to blame it on, the admin might not have been, they weren't sure what to do. Okay, well, let's educate them. But it goes above that. It goes above that. Lucky for me, the school that my daughters go to has a kick-ass, and I said kick-ass, principal. Because every time that's happened at their school, my daughters march straight up to the office and is like, Kelly, because they know her from way back when, this is what happened. And she doesn't let it go. You're not going to get away with calling my daughter the N-word in class, and she's not going to check you on it, because she will, but she's also not going to get expelled, so she knows who to go to. That admin has her back. All admins should have every child's back. And when those instances happen, my admin reached out to me to say, hey, heard about this that happened, just want to talk to you about it. That's what should be happening. Those conversations, parents being notified, has to happen. We're not going to sweep it under the rug. I don't care if you're friends with the admin or friends with the teachers or friends with whoever might be at the district office. There is no hotline for whistleblowers, but people need to start making these phone calls and sending in emails and writing the board to let them know. Speaking to the board at the board meetings. Send in an email if you can't make it. They actually do it on Zoom too. They make it so accessible to reach them. There is no excuse for it to be 2023, and we are not holding admin accountable for what they're doing. Enough is enough. And all of the students that you guys are seeing, you babies that are here, if kids are saying it, if you see something, say something. And no matter what age you are, you have to speak up. I'm going to end on that because I can get really fired up. But yes, everybody belongs. We all belong here. It's all of our country. Don't be afraid to speak up. And I draw a bright line at hate. And so if anybody is telling you, hey, you have to tolerate the hate, no, you don't. Enough with that. It's time to speak up and tamp it down. So thank you guys all for coming.
Silence is complicity! Silence is complicity!
Silence is complicity. 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 Silence is complicity.
Silence is complicity.